Dear readers and listeners, in this PowerPoint video, we present a bird's eye overview of chapter 381 from Yeoman's Textbook of Neurosurgery. The title of the chapter is International Initiatives and Collaborations to Advance the Care of Patients with Traumatic Brain Injury. The authors of the chapter are myself, Adam Ferguson, Joe Giacchino, Tariq Khan from Pakistan, Angelos Kolias from Cambridge, and Gail Rousseau. TBI poses a huge burden to patients, relatives, and society as a whole. Approximately half the world population will suffer a TBI during their lifetime. What many of us don't recognize is that having had a single or multiple TBIs carries a risk for late neurodegenerative disorders and lower life expectancy. Importantly, most TBIs occur in low and middle income countries. Yet research in these countries is underrepresented. It is extremely important that research in LMICs is strengthened. Equally important is to consider the entire chain of trauma care, including pre-hospital care and post-acute care. Benefits obtained by good care in the acute phase may be lost if not consolidated by appropriate post-acute care. We present in the chapter a number of organizations with a specific focus on post-acute care. We are living in the era of evidence-based medicine, where randomized controlled trials and guidelines are considered the gold standard. But we can ask the question if these have really made a difference or not. And what we do is we would like to present you a complementary approach, namely comparative effectiveness research. This requires large data sets collected by international collaborative efforts. TBI is characterized by a large heterogeneity in disease type, pathophysiology, and severity. Precision medicine approaches targeting the needs of individual patients will be more appropriate than standardized general approaches. In the ICU also, a standardized staircase approach is generally used that does not take the requirements of individual patients sufficiently into account. The large heterogeneity of TBI, however, can be explored in large observational studies by conducting comparative effectiveness research. A particular challenge in this approach is confounding by indication. For example, patients receiving an ICP monitor may be expected to have poorer outcome than those who do not, because the severity of the condition motivates the use of ICP monitoring. Broad data sharing and collaborative research has the greatest potential to advance the care for TBI. However, this means that our academic culture needs to adapt to this with openness between researchers and appropriate academic recognition of the input of investigators in collecting data. Networks facilitate knowledge transfer to patient care, and the strength of numbers in collaborative approaches make impossible questions answerable. TBI has had a long history of international collaborations, and a new impetus to this tradition was provided by the establishment of the International Collaborative Approaches to TBI Research, the INTBER Foundation, INTBER organization, in 2011. So, what is INTBER? Uniquely, it's a collaboration of funding agencies and investigators. The founding organizations were the European Commission, NIH, NINDS, and CIHR in Canada. Since then, it has been joined by other organizations. I would like to present you a number of examples of INTBER projects. One of these is Centre TBI, Collaborative European Neurotrauma Effectiveness Research, which was conducted in Europe and Israel. It brings together a total of 51 scientific institutes and had prospective observational data collection across 18 countries. Linked projects were conducted in Australia, China, and India, making this a global effort. Importantly, the data collection was harmonized with Track TBI, one of the other INTBER projects in the US. Centre is a team effort in the spirit of INTBER. Data, highly granular data, were collected in a core study and more basic data in a registry. They were linked with repositories for neuroimaging and biomarkers. Analysis was conducted in two directions: precision medicine approaches and comparative effectiveness research to identify best practices. I would like to emphasize that Centre TBI is much more than an observational study. It's a large-scale project which started with extensive provider profiling, establishing a fingerprint of centre characteristics. Centre TBI also pioneered the concept of living systematic reviews, in which, once the initial systematic review has been completed, it enters into a continuous cycle, collating new evidence and updating the systematic review. This has now been taken over by the Cochrane collaboration. Working together in international collaborations, we can accomplish a lot. And this slide shows you the overview of how INTBER studies collectively aim to improve the care for TBI. First of all, by precision medicine approaches. Secondly, by comparative effectiveness research, identifying best practices. And by improving prognostic models, which can be used towards benchmarking quality of care. Track TBI is the counterpart of Centre TBI in the US, and this study was largely harmonized with Centre TBI in terms of data collection, adhering to the common data elements of NIH, NINDS. It has an additional focus on trauma and friend controls, advanced neuroimaging, and also developed public-private partnerships. Meta-analysis of individual patient data is facilitated by Track TBI by establishing the TED, the TBI Endpoints Development Initiative, bringing together multiple data on nearly 7,000 patients. Data sharing and global collaborations are now changing the landscape of TBI research, making our world smaller, safer, and a better place. The key messages of Chapter 381 are that concerted efforts are required to address TBI as a global health problem. We emphasize that TBI causes a disproportionate burden of death and disability in low and middle income countries. Collaborative multinational consortia have the potential to provide strong Class 1 and Class 2 evidence to fuel evidence-based guidelines and actualize TBI precision medicine. As a complementary approach to randomized controlled trials, comparative effectiveness research offers opportunity to generate high-quality evidence guiding treatment. Research efforts to improve care and outcome for TBI should span the entire trauma chain, from pre-hospital setting to post-acute care. Neurosurgery is in the front lines for implementing efforts to promote access to appropriate care. There is growing recognition that TBI is a chronic condition that requires a proactive, lifelong approach to disease management. I would like to end with this final slide, which shows here on the left the cover of the issue of Lancet Neurology, in which the main descriptive results of center TBI were published. And this was made by the artist inspired by the Japanese art of kintsugi, which means repairing broken pottery with gold. And look here, you see the shape of a face with a fractured skull and a bit of skull left out. TBI is hugely complex, and repairing the brain after injury requires huge knowledge, collaboration, and is an art. On this side, we show the cover of the Lancet Neurology Commission on TBI, which was published in 2017 and presented to the European Parliament. It provides a complete overview of all challenges in the care of TBI. We strongly suggest you read more, both Chapter 381 and also this commissioned issue in the Lancet Neurology. We wish you all success in the care for your patients. Thank you very much.